The Last of Us adaptation is the best show on TV right now, but it has opened up so many questions. One of the biggest questions is how the infection spread to capture the whole world, and there have been many fan theories circling around. One of these theories is pretty wild, and now we finally have confirmation on whether or not it is correct. So what is it? In this video we are going to break down the 3 biggest questions surrounding the infection, and where it came from, and unpack the biggest theories so far. Stick around to see what the creators of the show had to say about it. Let's dive in, starting with our first question. Number 1, where did the infection come from? In the opening scene of episode 2, we are taken to Jakarta, Indonesia. The show tells us that the date is September 24, 2003, which is right before we saw the infection pick up in episode 1. In the scene, a professor of mycology is taken from her lunch to go to a lab. The professor is asked to examine a slide of the cordyceps fungus and see a body that has been infected with it. She asks where the person came from, and she is told that they were found at a flour and grain factory in the west part of the city. She is told that the woman became violent, bit people, and had to be shot by police. The people she bit also had to be killed. However, she is told they don't know who bit the woman and there are 14 workers still missing. They ask the mycologist how to keep the disease from spreading, but her answer is chilling. She tells the officer that there is no medicine and the only solution is to bomb the city and everyone in it. And that is all the information we are given. So we may know where the infection started, but we don't know how it spread to the entire world so quickly. So what does this mean? We finally have an answer, and we'll get into this in a moment. But first, let's dive into some other crazy new information we learned. How does the infection spread? In episode 2, we are also given information on how the infection spreads from person to person in a few key scenes. At one moment, Ellie asks if the infection can spread through spores in the air, and Joel tells her that idea is a myth, directly telling us one massive change from the video game, where spores are a key point of infection. However, the show also introduces another change. Tess explains that the infected are all linked through an underground network of the fungus. She says that the fungus works like wires and can be linked for miles. This means that stepping on a patch of cordyceps could awaken infected in other areas. This concept was not part of the video game at all, introducing us to a brand new idea. However, it is based in real science, according to creator Craig Mazin.
One of the changes that Neil and I felt we needed to make early on was the way the fungus would spread. Obviously, we did a lot of research. Indeed, there is this thing called the Wood Wide Web. Fungus can communicate chemically over insane distances.
The creators also gave a reason for not including spores.
In the game, it spreads through biting and saliva, but it also can spread through the air, through spores. And while that works in a video game environment, in real life, spores move around everywhere. And it's just harder to buy into the notion that spores localize and don't spread.
Altogether, these changes seem pretty thought out. Do you think that the show should have kept the idea that the disease should spread through spores? What do you think about the idea of an underground network? Do you think these changes make the show better or worse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. With all of that presented for us, we know how the infection can spread and where it started. But we still did not know how this infection captured the whole world so quickly, until now, bringing us to our final question. Number 3, how did the infection infect the whole world? Even after just one episode, some fans already had a pretty wild theory. Within just moments of the first episode being released, a Reddit user named Anagnos says in a post, "I wonder if the initial cordyceps outbreak in the show is spread by contaminated flour." This is an interesting theory, but it gets even more interesting as they point out some patterns in episode 1. During breakfast, Sarah doesn't make pancakes because they are out of flour. As they leave the house, they turn down the offer to have some biscuits. Joel even says he is on the Atkins diet. Later, Sarah chooses not to eat Mrs. Adler's raisin cookies, and Joel forgets to bring home a birthday cake. So far, they are right. We never saw our main characters eat flour. So let's turn back to what made the Jakarta scene in episode 2 so important. The officer says that the infected woman was found at the flour and grain factory. Now, this isn't just any flour and grain factory. In fact, it is the largest in the world. Upon learning this, things seem to add up even more. So what did the creators say? In an interview with Variety, both Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann confirmed the theory, as Druckmann said, "Yeah, we pretty much said yes." And Mazin breaks it down, saying, when she talks about where these people worked and what was going on in that factory, yeah, it's pretty clear that's what's going on. We like the idea of that science, and we try as best we can to make sure that our research all connects. The mycologist asks where it happened, and the guy says a flour factory on the west side of the city. We are absolutely talking about. There is the world's largest flour mill in Jakarta. So that's a fine theory, and I think people should keep running with it. So there we have it, the infection started and spread worldwide through the flour mill in Jakarta. Although this is a very detailed and thought-out origin story, this is still a different take from the video game, which said that the infection came from crops in South America, demonstrating illustrating yet another change in the show. Now that we have confirmation on how things came to be, here are our final thoughts. Although we were promised a direct adaptation of the video game, it seems like we are being introduced to a lot of new changes in the show. Only time will tell whether more changes are to come, and what else we should expect. But, so far, the changes seem thoughtful and well-researched, and they have made for good television in The Last of Us. Most of all, it is rather impressive to see how detailed and realistic the changes are, and it is fun to connect all the different pieces. What are your thoughts on The Last of Us so far? How do you feel about the changes? Let us know in the comments. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest theories and updates surrounding The Last of Us and many of the other hottest shows and movies right now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.